welcome to the first ever episode of my new podcast. I'd like to welcome Fay Grove, who has kindly agreed to be here. Hi, Fay.
Hi, I'm Faye. I've never been on a podcast before. So I'd probably call myself an experienced hobbyist. I've owned exotic animals my whole life, and I've worked for a bit of everything. I've done rescues, breeders, shops, and I've also done my fair share in private rehabilitation.
So, shall we explain to the listeners about how me and you met?
Yeah, we've been friends for probably a decade now.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So I met you, you were my green flag, as I like to say. I had gone through a lot of problems with trying to get a hairless guinea pig. I found somebody who was a breeder who gave me very poorly pigs, and the hairless guinea pig didn't last very long, despite every effort we had. I met you, and you did everything right from day one. Um, from the moment you and me realised that we both like David Bowie,
Mhm.
you started playing the mother to the mother of my pig, David Bowie songs.
That is
And
true, yeah.
you put a lot of care, a lot of love in. You would send me daily pictures, messages, weigh-ins. And when the babies popped, you offered me which one I was ready for. And we gave it a little bit of time to let them develop into their own characters. But I think I picked the spunkiest, silliest, naughtiest one, didn't I?
Most definitely. So, for anybody that doesn't know, skinny pigs are hairless guinea pigs. So, they're basically guinea pigs. They have the same diet with slightly different needs and requiring slightly different husbandry than your standard guinea pig, which is often why they can be referred to as exotic pets. And it
Yeah.
was many years ago now. I think it was actually, oh, over a decade ago. I actually used to breed guinea pigs.
He was pretty special. Um, and I don't think he would have been the way he was if it wasn't for all the effort that you put in the first place.
Yeah.
And it's kind of what I wanted to talk about because there isn't very many people like you. We want to boost up these good breeders that are doing it for the love of the animal, that put 110% into it, that aren't interested in what money could be made because there isn't a lot of money to be made when it comes to the animal world. It's all about your passion.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's a lot of people that I've even noticed myself that are just in the hobby or the business to make money. And that's something that I actually really hate. I think that you can definitely tell people who are passionate about what they do, who take better care of their animals, who invest more time and money in ensuring that they've got all of their needs met, that they're receiving the proper diet, the proper enclosures, the proper handling, and yeah.
One of the reasons why I went to you and I enjoyed you is you showed so many green flags when the fact that you put so much extra care and handling and thought into these animals. And as you said, there's a lot of people that are in it to make money. And then there's a lot of people like you and me who at one point have been young, have been naive, have been tunnel focused on looking for that set exotic animal, be it your skinny pig, be it your dragon, be it your snake, and you avoid all of these red flags in order to get the animal that you're seeking.
Been there myself.
And
I've ignored all the red flags. I've gone against my gut feeling, which is usually always right. And
absolutely.
just because I'm hell bent on getting the animal that I wanted. But I think it's good to educate listeners about what those green flags are and also what the red flags are when it comes to, breeders or even pet shops.
Yes, absolutely. And So you kind of got to think about it. There's three different ways that people get animals. It's you go to your breeder, you go to your rescue, or you go to your pet shop. There really isn't any other way. I guess hobbyists do swap and trade between us, but as somebody that is new to an animal or trying to get into the hobby, you need to decide which avenue you're going down and working out what's right and what's wrong down at each avenue. You might know a very reputable shop, but somebody might work in there and find that that shop isn't as reputable. You might work for a rescue and find that they're not doing things above board. So there's no right and wrong way to get your animal, and a lot of people will put you down for going to a breeder rather than a rescue. And I don't think either are better than the other. I think depending on what you look into that area, what animal, person, rescue, breeder, be it what it be, the better.
Yeah, completely agree. So what would you say some of the red flags are?
So you always want to look at the husbandry of the place that you're at and how willing and open somebody is going to be with you. So, say you're going to a breeder, you want to find a breeder that's willing to openly communicate with you and wants to cater and stay in contact with you, rather than somebody that's just selling the animal and what have you. It's the same in reptiles as it is, I would say, for cats and dogs, that you want to go and see the mother and the father. You want to see how they've been raised. You want to see what diet they're on and what husbandry they already have.
Yeah, I think you've made some really good points. Are there any more red flags that you'd like to tell our listeners about?
A lot of the red flags are people with more animals than they can handle, not giving the correct husbandry, and somebody that wants to sell you something quick, fast, cheap, and not keep the contact at high.
Yeah, so it's funny you say that actually, because I kind of refer to those, types of people as hoarders, to be honest. I think that's the only word that I can think of that sums that up. Um,
People struggle identifying with the word hoarder. And hoarding and OCD is all a big spectrum, a lot like I would say the autistic spectrum, the ADHD spectrum is. You will either put a lot of work and effort into your animals, but you will end up with too much and too much mental health problems to deal with it all sometimes, and the resources to deal with it all. And that's when you need to step back and look at yourself and think, am I doing this for the right reasons or am I not? And you can see that in the way somebody cares for their animals very easily.
that
Are
is
you will
definitely true. I would say, like, as someone that's got autism, that would identify as neurodivergent, I've actually been in that position myself, and I've had to take a step back and have a deep think about, you know, am I doing things the right way? Is there any way that I could be making this easier for myself? And I like to think that I've got into good routine now, to the point where I'm actually enjoying my animals a lot more than everything becoming overwhelming and everything, becoming some sort of chore. I actually enjoy the time that's spent with them. But yeah, I can completely agree that there are people out there that have got so many pets that they're just completely overwhelmed with the responsibility of looking after them, to the point where, the animals are starting to suffer and they're not getting all their needs met.
and that's where I think the difference between a hoarder and a hobbyist is. If you're a hoarder, you do not, I don't think you understand or realize the situation you're in. You're sort of glazed over to what's going on, actually. Where a hobbyist is somebody that's willing to stand back and go, am I doing this right? Have I got enough? Am I in too deep? What is the right steps to carry on? And I think that's what makes the big difference is holding yourself accountable and thinking
Mm.
about things. And I don't think hoarders hold themselves accountable.
No, I don't think they do, but they say that hoarding is a disease, it's a mental
Yeah,
health issue. It's just a shame that there's so many animals involved with it, really.
it absolutely is. That is the way things are. But that's why we people like us need to talk about what green flags there are. What are you looking into? Rather than what to avoid. I mean, we do need to know what to avoid, absolutely. But also, how are we going to know what's good if you haven't been out there and tried? That was one of the things I found when it comes to the skinny pigs was the first woman that I met, she was keeping her skinny pigs, as I said, in snake racks. And I didn't know at the time that wasn't the right thing. I just thought she had so many that maybe that was a way of keeping them in. You know, if you're a breeder, you've got so many, it's just what
Yeah.
the way it is. And then I met you, and you really showed me everything that you were doing down to the T. And I think that makes the whole difference. And you weren't having more than you can handle. You had 1 or 2 litters at a time. You had them you knew the dates of conception, you knew the date of birth, you knew the sire, the dam, you knew all of that. And that I think is a massive difference. And I think
Yeah.
you can do exactly the same when it comes to a rescue. Um, a good rescue will have good paperwork and good policies behind it. And you need to look out for that
Yeah.
rather than just looking for the animal.
I've also known rescues that tend to take in, you know, too many rehomes to the point where they're actually struggling with their capacity. And, it's quite sad, really, that there's a lot of rescues around that are struggling to make ends meet with the cost of living crisis, that aren't able to help all the animals that they want to help because they are literally full to the
Mm,
brim. And it's with guinea pigs, it's with cats, it's with dogs, but it's also with a lot of reptiles. I think there's so many
absolutely.
reptiles and amphibians in rescues, more than what people actually realize.
And this is where I have never put a name to a rescue that I've done. You know, I wouldn't give myself a rescue name or a brand name. I think everyone should personally and privately do their little bit. If you are somebody who have knowledge in a certain animal, be that cats, dogs, horses, reptiles, snakes, anything, if you've got that bit extra knowledge to give that extra help, take on that foster animal, you know, and I'm not just talking about fostering dogs. It can be as simple as a snake or something, you know, something in a cage in the corner of your house. That takes one animal out of the rescue. It gives it better handling, better one-to-one care in order to get home much more smoother and to transfer into that home smoother.
Yeah, no, that's something to think about for sure. Um, let's talk about more of these green flags. I, for one, whenever I've gone to somebody's home or to a shop or, even a professional hobbyist setup, I've always looked at cleanliness. Is this
Yeah,
place clean? Does it smell? Because, in my opinion, if you haven't got the time to make sure that everything is sterile, everything is organized, labeled, what other
mm,
things are you possibly lacking in? So that's always been one of my green flags. What would you say is one of yours?
absolutely. So I have been in a shop and I've seen that for myself where people don't exactly know what they've got in stock because they've just got so much stock and keeping on top and keeping it clean of the place. One of the things that I really like about going to a good shop or a good rescue, and I hate to call out Pets at Home, but I recently went in there for a little while and they have it very organized. Every single animal has a sheet. It has when it's been fed, it has it when it's been watered, it has when it's been cleaned. Having that clear communication and being able to see that a shop owner has that knowledge of what they've got in store, when was it last fed, when was it last cleaned, that is a massive green flag. One of the things that I enjoyed about the reptile shop was they used to put a label on top with all the feeds it's ever had in its life and whether it took, rot, whatever. And I think that's a really good system because the new owner is going to need to know all that information.
That is definitely handy, especially when they've had their last shed or when they've had their last meal. It's always something to look for sure. I'm trying to think of another one of my green flags. I think it would have to be how passionate someone is about the animals that they're selling.
Yeah,
Um, Someone that's passionate, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Their eyes just light up. They enjoy what they're doing. They're enjoying telling you all about it. Someone that's
yeah.
passionate is someone that cares. And if you care, then you're obviously gonna make the effort to give the animals the best that you can give them. You're gonna make the effort to know the correct husbandry, to know everything you need to know about them. And yeah, for sure, that's definitely one of my green flags.
So going along your lines of passion, going the extra mile with the animal, on that line as well. So when you're selling an animal and you're passionate and you know that animal, you say, you know that animal has a particular hide that it enjoys, or a blanket or a spot or something like that. When you're selling that animal, or give that animal that extra mile, go say, right, this is its hide. I know we can replace it. It might, or offer them to buy it at some point or something, because that goes to show how much that you care that that animal feels comfortable and safe in its new environment.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I think it's safe to say that every animal, no matter whether it's a reptile or even an invert, they all have their own unique personalities and they will all have something unique that they like, whether it could be a favorite food, a favorite place to hide, favorite substrate. It varies with animal to animal, but I think knowing those things are definitely an extra touch. And it's always something that I would look out for as well.
And knowledge is power in that fact, and it's going to help the new owner connect with the animal better with just having that tiny little bit of added knowledge.
That's true. Another green flag I would probably say is when you go to a good breeder, you have got advice for a lifetime. They're never going
Yeah,
to make you feel bad for asking questions. If at some point in your life where you can no longer care for the animal, whether that be a jumping spider, a tarantula, a
yeah.
lizard, a snake, or even a guinea pig, they would happily take it back. And to me, that's always been a green flag.
That was a green flag that you taught me a very long time ago, and I held that throughout my rescue and rehabilitation,
Yeah.
and even a little bit of breeding occasionally I've done. I only ever do it whenever I hand over an animal. I always say to that person, if that animal ever needs a home, it is coming back to my home. You
Yeah,
don't resell that animal. It always has a house here, a home here. It'll always make space. And that is something you want to look out for in a breeder, even a shop. A good shop to say to you, look, if you're having an issue, we will take it back. Well, I don't think,
definitely.
money should be exchanged, or that needs a discussion. It's more, what is your contingency plan for that animal, and will that person take it back? Because if that person will take it back, then you're doing the right thing. But if you've got a breeder that's handing out animals that isn't willing to take them back, then they're adding to the problem without accepting any of the responsibility, and you want to see people take responsibility.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think people taking responsibility is definitely a good thing, whether that's just a jumping spider or even a praying mantis. At the end of the day, if you've bred that animal, you have a responsibility for that animal. I would always be happy to take any animal that I've bred back.
a good breeder will have a responsibility towards that animal for the rest of its life.
Absolutely. And it's what you want to look out for. And it's also a great feeling to have, to know that you're trusted again.
Hmm.
Um, I don't know how best to explain this, but a lot of my rescues, as I said, even if they're coming back home for a holiday, say the
Hmm.
person that's looking after, that owns the animal, wants you to take it to look after for a holiday. That to me is such a pleasure and a heartwarming experience, because it's almost like one of your own that you can get to feed up and spoil again, and get all the up-to-date photos and measurements to send that to in it. It's a reconnection with the customer or the client or the owner or however you want to call them.
Most definitely. So let's talk about some more red flags. What is one of your biggest red flags?
Um, Probably, I know we've already spoke about it, but my biggest red flag is people having more than they can handle.
Mm,
I've worked for, as I said, I've worked in a reptile shop. I've done my time volunteering at rescues and breeders, and many of them I've walked away from because they've had too much to deal with, and it shows in the quality of the animals and the
yes,
quality
like
of care.
definitely. I've had the same experience. And I've had to walk away because my conscience, I just
Mm,
couldn't live with it. You know, you try and do the best you can. Um, but in the end, deep down, I think you know that it's never going to be enough. And at some point, you just have to admit defeat and just walk away. And, you know, that's really depressing, to be honest. But I would rather put my time and energy into something worthwhile in in a project, whether that could be conservation or just volunteering at a rescue. You know, to me, that's more worthwhile because I know that I'm making a difference. In some places, you can try and make all the difference that you want to, and it's never going to be enough just
no.
because things are so bad.
I think what you're looking is for quality over quantity. Um, so I started my life and I was very heavily on I'll only rescue, I'll only rescue, I'll only rescue.
Mm,
But as I'm getting older, I do look at some of these really good breeders that put the time and energy into the quality of their animals, not the quantity. So I'm talking about,
mm,
say, like a dog breeder who has 1 or 2 litters a year, and that litter is exposed to different stimuli every single day of its life until it's
mm.
handed over to you with a set baseline of training and boundaries. And that quality is what you want to look for, be it a breeder or a rescue.
Most definitely. And talking about quality, you know, I think it's highly important that a breeder or hobbyist for that matter wants to, you know, improve an animal, you know.
Yeah,
Like I've imported like hundreds of snails over from Europe and Poland just because the genetics of them in this country, the UK, was dire. And, you know,
absolutely.
nobody wants a ill snail that's going to live a very short life, you know, get ill with shell defects and stuff. So I've, you know, made the effort to spend a lot of my own money bringing them in and, you know, breeding good quality snails.
That gave me a really good thought about that. About importing animals and the quality of them. So for a very long time, I was looking into Gambian pouch rats. Now, Gambian pouch rats are incredible animals. They're giant rats, as the name suggests, with pouches in their cheeks. They are currently used in third world countries to sniff out for tuberculosis and bombs. And they've only been in the UK for a very short amount of time. And a friend of mine bought one. Now, these animals, as well, they're quality animals that have been imported over here, but the exotic world weren't ready for them in the UK yet. The
Mm,
diet hasn't been very well researched and looked into and specialised in, so that people that are having these imported Gambian pouch rats aren't feeding them the correct diet and they are having malnutrition problems. So I think that's another thing that you really need to think about when you are getting into a hobby of an animal, be it exotic or not or whatever, is are you going to look into how well this animal is going to thrive and diet wise? Because a lot of these exotic animals we're bringing in, we don't know as much about them as we like to think we do.
that's actually true. Like with any animal, you want it to be able to thrive in captivity, you know, and it's funny you say that really because you know there's some not very well known reptiles. I'm going to go and talk about Sheltopusiks. They're actually a form of legless lizard,
Yeah,
and you know they're rarely ever captive bred. Um, they probably breed them in captivity more in the USA than over here in the UK.
Yeah.
But the amount of misinformation I've heard regarding the husbandry of these
Mm.
animals is absolutely diabolical. Like in nature, they are carnivorous, so they eat small mammals, they eat eggs, small
Yeah.
lizards. And I remember going to an exotic pet store and they actually had one for sale. And, I do my usual thing where this is how I check for a green flag as well. I ask certain questions and see what
Yeah.
response I would get back. And some of the responses I was getting back was just like, no, you clearly do not know what you're doing. I was told that they would live on a diet of insects and lettuce and fruit, which is clearly not the
Oh,
case.
that is something you want to do is you kind of want to test the person that you're talking to find out how much knowledge they have, how much they know about the animal that they're selling to you.
Just ask
And
a few
as,
trick questions and stuff.
as you're saying that, it reminded me of one zoo that I went to. It was a very small business that we tried out that was local. And I went there, interested in their reptile and invert show. And they had these stack of rats in a cage. Now, they didn't have them. I came back, I couldn't hold my heart with the way that they were being kept. They were being kept in a glass gerbilarium,
Mm,
and there was probably about 6 or 7 large male rats.
wow.
And I'd worked in obviously all the different things that I had, and I also made hammocks at the time. I was working had my own hammock business. So I actually asked my mum if we could fill the car up with all of my spare cages, hammocks, substrates, foods, anything that I had just to take to that zoo, because I couldn't leave thinking about these animals just in a glass gerbilarium.
Mm.
Absolutely, rats and glass shouldn't go together.
Yeah,
And they call themselves a zoo, and it's just another red flag. And people don't realize that until you've had experience in the animal in the hobby.
definitely. I suppose going to see a show, whether that be an exotic show, invert show, even an aquarium show, like you don't fully understand
No.
what goes behind the scenes. Like you'll see the animals perform, or they might look cute and you give them a little stroke, and they might give you a few fun-filled facts about the animal, but
Yeah.
really what goes on behind closed doors, I guess nobody truly knows.
Yeah, and I kept going back there because I was very young and it was for the love of the animals. And every time I went back, I saw something else that I didn't like and something else I didn't like. And I heard rumors, and in the end, I never went back. But
Mm.
you want to look out for these things. You go in with an open mind, hoping that everyone has the same standards. I don't know what the baseline people look for, maybe the RSPCA standards, or personally as a hobbyist, I look at every single detail. I will do as much research as possible. But you'd think these places will hold to a standard, and you go there and you go almost with rose tinted glasses.
Mm.
And after you've been a couple of times, you start to realize things aren't quite what they seem.
Yeah, definitely. That's why I think it's really important to, educate people, to do as much research as possible, to raise awareness about certain animals and the correct husbandry of those animals. And, this is why I'm lucky, really, that I've got the platform.
Yeah,
Well, I say a platform. I've kind of got a platform to do that. Like I often write articles about endangered species. That's another
yeah,
one of my passions, endangered species of fish. And I've recently started writing for another magazine. And, you know, to me, it really does make a difference, especially when I have people that come up to me and they would be like, oh, I've actually got a tank full of these fish because of an article that you wrote. And it just
mm,
really makes me happy. Like, I really do smile inside because I feel like my passion is inspiring other people. And, that's what I'm all about for sure.
Absolutely. And I think education is key. I think a lot of people are scared about the things that they don't really know. You need to knowledge is power when it comes to the animals. Once you know about them, you fall in love with them instantly.
That is really true, to be honest. Like, a lot of people are scared of spiders and snakes,
Yeah,
and I think that fear is really instilled into people at such a young age, and they usually inherit it from their parents who
yeah.
were usually also scared of spiders and snakes. And it's only when you really, have that knowledge that you realize that they're actually not dangerous, they're not scary, and if anything, we are more at risk of hurting them than what they are to us. And it's just little things like that, really, I guess.
But yeah, when it comes to your red flags, your green flags, your breeders, your rescues, your hobbyists, all of it, knowledge is power, passion
Mhm.
overrules it all as well. We're doing it for the passion more than anything.
Definitely. So this is my first podcast, guys, and I really hope that you'll go easy on me. I'm hoping to have another episode out in February. I'm going to try and do one every month. I'd like to say a really big thank you to Faye for joining me today. Thanks, Faye.
No, thank you. I am enjoying watching you ever grow. As normal, you've always been up to something amazing, and I'm looking forward to seeing how this channel goes and your other people that you bring on the podcast.
Yeah, I think it would be pretty awesome. It's definitely a journey for sure. But no, thank you so much for joining me today, and I'm sure I will see you soon. If you've enjoyed listening today, don't forget to like and subscribe. You can also head over to my social media pages in the meantime. The next episode should be out late February. Thank you for your support.